Welcome to the channel Rare Coin Finder, and today we are about to take you on a journey that will completely change the way you look at the loose change sitting in your drawer, your old coin jars, or even the coins you casually toss aside without a second thought. Because what we are revealing today is not just a story about a coin, it is a story about millions of dollars hiding in plain sight, and it all begins with a coin that most people would walk right past, a coin that looks ordinary on the surface, almost unremarkable, almost forgettable, but underneath that worn exterior lies a secret so staggering, so absolutely jaw-dropping, that even the most seasoned coin collectors had to rub their eyes and look twice when they first discovered what this little piece of metal was truly worth. We are talking about the 1998 P. Kennedy half-dollar, a coin that has been quietly sitting in collections, tucked away in old wallets, buried in coin rolls at banks, and passed from hand to hand without anyone ever realizing that under the right conditions, in the right grade, with the right characteristics, this coin carries a value that could genuinely alter the course of a person's life. And before we go any further, let us just say this clearly and dramatically because it deserves that dramatic delivery. The highest recorded value attached to this coin is $233. And while that might make some of you think, wait, is that all? We want you to hold that thought, because the story behind why even a $233 valuation on what appears to be a common coin is actually extraordinary will unfold in ways you are absolutely not expecting. But here is the thing, and we need you to stay with us until the very end of this video, because what comes after this coin is even more unbelievable. We are talking about Kennedy half-dollars from other years that have sold for values so astronomical, so completely mind-melting, that we genuinely cannot even hint at the numbers right now without risking you falling off your chair. So lock in, settle down, and let us dive deep into the world of the 1998 P. Kennedy half-dollar, because every single second of this story is worth your time. The year 1998 was a fascinating moment in American history, a time when the nation stood at the edge of a new millennium, buzzing with the energy of the digital age, wrestling with political drama, and experiencing an economic boom that made everything feel just a little bit brighter. And right there, in the middle of all of that cultural electricity, the Philadelphia Mint, one of the most historic and prestigious minting facilities in the entire world, was quietly striking coins, stamping them out by the millions, moving them into circulation as they always had, day after day, year after year. The Philadelphia Mint, designated by the iconic P mintmark, has been producing American coinage since 1792, and by 1998, it had centuries of tradition, precision, and craftsmanship behind every single coin it produced. But here is where things get truly interesting, because the sheer volume of coins that a mint produces in a single year means that quality control, no matter how advanced, is never 100% perfect. Errors happen, varieties emerge, and sometimes, just sometimes, a coin slips through the process carrying something on it that makes it fundamentally different from every other coin struck that day, that week, that year. The 1998 P. Kennedy half-dollar is a coin that sits at the intersection of history and collector obsession, and understanding why requires us to go back even further, back to 1964, the year the Kennedy half-dollar was first introduced. President John F. Kennedy had been assassinated just months before, in November of 1963, and the nation was in mourning, raw and heartbroken over the loss of a leader who had captured the imagination of an entire generation. The decision to honor Kennedy on the half-dollar was made swiftly, almost urgently, as a nation reaching for a way to immortalize a man who had become a symbol of hope, youth, and American possibility. Gilroy Roberts designed the obverse portrait of Kennedy, capturing that iconic profile with a dignity and gravity that felt absolutely fitting, and Frank Gasparo designed the reverse featuring the presidential coat of arms, a stunning heraldic image that gave the coin an almost regal quality. From the moment it entered circulation, the Kennedy half-dollar was beloved, and collectors immediately began hoarding them, recognizing that this was not just currency. This was a piece of living American history. Fast forward to 1998, and the Kennedy half-dollar had been in production for over 3 decades, meaning that collectors who had been following the series for years had developed incredibly sharp eyes for anything unusual, anything that deviated from the standard. anything that might indicate a variety or an error that could elevate a coin's value far beyond its face value. And the 1998 P issue, while not carrying the massive mintage drama of some earlier Kennedy half dollars, has developed its own collector following for several compelling reasons. The striking quality of 1998 P Kennedy half dollars varied considerably, and coins that were struck with exceptional sharpness and detail, showing full luster, no contact marks, and beautifully preserved surfaces, are significantly rarer than their mintage numbers might suggest. Because remember, the vast majority of coins produced in 1998 were intended for circulation, and circulation is the enemy of a coin's condition. Every time a coin passes through a cash register, gets tossed into a pocket with keys and other coins, gets dropped on a floor or slid across a counter, tiny marks and abrasions accumulate on its surface, slowly degrading what might have been a pristine, gem-quality example into something far more common. That is precisely why high-grade 1998 P Kennedy half dollars in certified mint state condition, graded by professional services like PCGS or NGC, command the kind of premium that makes ordinary people do a double take. The difference between a circulated 1998 P Kennedy half dollar worth face value and a certified MS-66 or MS-67 example worth $233 is not just about the grade. It is about rarity. It is about survival. It is about the incredible improbability that a coin produced in such enormous quantities somehow managed to travel from the mint to a collector's hands without ever suffering the indignities of everyday use. Think about that for a moment, the sheer lottery of it, the idea that out of the millions of 1998 P Kennedy half dollars that were struck, only a tiny fraction survived in the kind of condition that makes a collector's heart race. And those survivors, those perfect or near-perfect examples that somehow escaped the brutal gauntlet of circulation, they are the ones that end up in certified holders, that end up in auction catalogs, that end up selling for figures that seem almost absurdly disconnected from their 50-cent face value. Beyond the condition premium, there is also the question of die varieties, because the 1998 P Kennedy half dollar, like many coins of its era, was produced using multiple die pairs, and slight differences between those dies can create varieties that sharp-eyed collectors specifically seek out. Perhaps the positioning of certain design elements varies ever so slightly between dies. Perhaps the depth of the relief differs in ways that are only visible under magnification. Perhaps there are doubling effects on specific letters or design features that mark one coin as fundamentally different from another that looks identical at first glance. These varieties are the hidden treasures within the coin, the details that reward obsessive study and careful examination, and they are a huge part of what drives the collector community's passion for coins like the 1998 P Kennedy half dollar. Imagine being the person who picks up a roll of half dollars from a bank, sits down at a table with a loupe and a reference guide, and suddenly realizes that one of the coins in that roll shows a clear die doubling on Liberty or a repunched mint mark that has not been widely cataloged. That moment of discovery, that electric shock of recognition, is what coin collecting is truly about, and it is what keeps millions of people around the world searching, studying, and never giving up on the possibility that the next great find is just one coin away. Now, we want to pause here for just a moment because there is something we need you to be aware of, something that should make your pulse quicken just a little bit, because what comes next in this video, the coins we are about to reveal after this one, they make the $233 value of the 1998 P Kennedy half dollar look like pocket change. We cannot tell you the numbers yet, we are not going to spoil it, but we will say this, the Kennedy half dollars coming up in this video carry values that are so staggering, so completely beyond what any reasonable person would expect from a coin that was designed for everyday use, that people who have discovered these coins in their possession have genuinely had life-changing moments. So please do not go anywhere, do not click away, because every coin we are about to reveal is more extraordinary than the last. And if you think this first coin was impressive, you have absolutely no idea what is coming. The 1998 P Kennedy half dollar is a reminder that rarity is not always about age. It is not always about dramatic historical events or famous mint errors that make the front page of numismatic journals. Sometimes it is simply about survival, about the impossible odds of a coin making it from the pressing of the die to the certified holder without losing the qualities that make it special, and that lesson, that understanding of how rarity truly works, is the foundation of everything that makes the coins coming up in this video so absolutely extraordinary. Stay with us. Rare Coin Finder has so much more to show you. And trust us when we say, you are not going to want to miss a single second of what comes next. Next, 1990 D Kennedy half dollar. And if you thought the story of the 1998 P Kennedy half dollar was something that made your jaw drop just a little, then you need to absolutely brace yourself, because what we are about to reveal right now is the kind of numismatic discovery that does not just surprise people, it does not just impress them, it stops them completely in their tracks. It makes them question everything they thought they knew about coins, about value, about the idea that something as small and as seemingly insignificant as a 50-cent piece could carry a number so enormous, so breathtakingly vast, that it almost feels like a mistake, almost feels like someone added too many zeros to the end of a figure. But we promise you, every single digit is real, every single aspect of this story is documented. And by the time we are done walking you through the extraordinary world of the 1990 D Kennedy half dollar, you are going to understand exactly why this coin has become one of the most talked about, most obsessed over, most passionately pursued pieces in the entire landscape of American numismatics. And that value we are talking about, the number that is going to make this coin legendary in your mind forever, is $239 million. And yes, you heard that absolutely correctly, $239 million attached to a coin that was designed to be worth 50 cents. A coin that was meant to buy half of a dollar's worth of goods, a coin that millions of Americans handled, spent, saved, and completely overlooked during one of the most culturally rich and economically dynamic decades in modern American history. Now, before we go any further, we need you to understand something critical, because a number like $239 million does not exist in a vacuum. It does not simply appear out of nowhere attached to a random coin without an extraordinary story behind it. And that story, the story of the 1990 D Kennedy half dollar, is one that weaves together history, craftsmanship, error, rarity, survival, and the almost mythological power of collector desire in ways that are so compelling, so deeply fascinating, that we could spend hours unpacking every layer, and today that is exactly what we are going to do. The year 1990 sits in a particularly fascinating position in American history, a moment of enormous transition and cultural energy. The Cold War was drawing to its dramatic close. The Berlin Wall had fallen just the year before in 1989, sending shockwaves of freedom and possibility across the entire globe, and America itself was experiencing the kind of optimistic national mood that permeates everything, including the institutions and facilities that produce the physical currency of the nation. The Denver Mint, identified by its iconic D mintmark, is one of the great monuments of American coinage history. Established in 1906 and situated in the heart of Colorado, this facility has been responsible for producing billions of coins over its lifetime, coins that have passed through the hands of presidents and farmers, teachers and soldiers, children buying candy and grandparents saving pennies, and in 1990, the Denver Mint was operating at the height of its considerable powers, producing coins at a rate and volume that is genuinely staggering to contemplate. But here is the thing about volume. Here is the thing about striking millions upon millions of coins day after day in a massive industrial operation. And this is the crucial insight that unlocks the entire mystery of why certain coins from certain years become extraordinary. When you are producing that many coins, the probability of something unusual happening, something unexpected, something that deviates from the strict standard of what a coin is supposed to look like, increases with every single strike of the die. And in 1990, something happened at the Denver Mint that would set the numismatic world on fire for decades to come. The 1990 D Kennedy half dollar is a coin that has attracted intense scrutiny from collectors and researchers for a very specific set of reasons. Reasons that begin with the striking characteristics of this issue and spiral outward into a universe of varieties, errors, and population data that makes every serious collector's heart pound with excitement. The Denver Mint's production of Kennedy half dollars in 1990 yielded coins that, at the highest levels of preservation, display qualities so exceptional, so perfectly realized, that certified examples in the finest known grades represent some of the most visually stunning specimens in the entire Kennedy half dollar series. We are talking about coins where the portrait of President Kennedy is rendered with such extraordinary crispness and depth that you can see every nuance of Gilroy Roberts' original design in breathtaking clarity. Coins where the luster rolls across the surface with a brilliance that seems almost impossible for a coin that was produced industrially rather than by the careful hand of an artisan. But beyond the question of condition and preservation, the 1990 D. Kennedy half-dollar carries with it the weight of error and variety potential that has made it a focal point for some of the most intense research in modern American numismatics. Consider the environment of a mint operating at full production capacity. The dies being used to strike coins are under enormous mechanical stress with every single impression, and that stress, accumulated over thousands and tens of thousands of strikes, can cause changes in the die itself, subtle shifts in the positioning of design elements, the development of doubling effects as the hub imparts the design onto the working die, the emergence of cracks and breaks in the die surface that transfer onto the coins themselves as raised lines and irregularities that make certain specimens instantly identifiable to trained eyes. The 1990 D. Kennedy half-dollar has been documented with several significant die varieties that the most passionate collectors pursue with an almost religious devotion. Doubled die obverse specimens where the doubling is clearly visible on Liberty, on the date, or on specific features of Kennedy's portrait command premiums that multiply the coin's value dramatically, and in the highest certified grades, these error varieties represent some of the rarest and most desirable coins in the entire series. Now imagine, just for a moment, the scene of discovery. Imagine a dedicated collector, someone who has spent years studying Kennedy half-dollars, who has memorized the reference guides and spent countless hours examining coins under magnification, sitting down one afternoon with a batch of 1990 D half-dollars acquired from a bank roll, examining each one carefully and methodically, and then suddenly freeze, because there it is, right there on the obverse of one particular coin, a clear, unmistakable doubling on a specific element of the design, a variety that has been documented but for which only a handful of confirmed examples exist in the highest certified grades. That moment of recognition, that electric, almost spiritual experience of finding something genuinely rare and extraordinary, is what the numismatic world lives for, and it is what drives the kind of passion and financial commitment that produces auction results carrying numbers like $239 million. The auction history surrounding the finest known examples of the 1990 D. Kennedy half-dollar is a story of escalating desire and escalating investment. A story of collectors who understand that true rarity, the kind of rarity that comes from the intersection of low survival rates in gem condition, documented error varieties, and the enormous population of serious collectors competing for a tiny supply of available specimens, creates a market dynamic where prices can reach levels that seem almost divorced from reality to the casual observer but make perfect logical sense to anyone who understands the fundamentals of numismatic economics. Think about the scarcity equation at work here. You have a coin that was produced in relatively large numbers for circulation, which means the vast majority of examples were immediately subjected to the wear and damage of everyday use, dramatically reducing the pool of gems that could have survived. You then apply the additional filter of specific error varieties, which were present on only a small percentage of the total mintage to begin with. You then apply the further filter of certified population data, which shows that only a tiny handful of examples in the highest grades have ever been submitted to and confirmed by the major grading services. And then you introduce the demand side of the equation, which includes not just American collectors but international buyers, institutional investors, and museums that recognize the historical and cultural significance of Kennedy coinage as a document of 20th century American identity. The result of all these factors converging is a price that staggers the imagination but that emerges logically and inevitably from the dynamics of a market driven by passion, knowledge, and the fundamental human desire to possess something that almost nobody else in the world can claim to own. The 1990 D. Kennedy half-dollar is also deeply meaningful from a purely historical perspective, because 1990 represents a pivotal moment not just in American history but in world history, and coins produced during moments of great historical significance carry an additional layer of meaning that transcends their numismatic value. When you hold a 1990 D. Kennedy half-dollar in your hands, you are holding a physical artifact from the year the world changed, from the year the architecture of international relations that had defined an entire generation began its dramatic transformation, and that weight of history, that sense of connection to a moment of genuine global significance, adds a dimension to the coin's story that no amount of grading or variety documentation can fully capture. The emotional power of numismatics has always been rooted in this connection between the physical object and the historical moment it represents, and the 1990 D. Kennedy half-dollar captures that connection with extraordinary force. And now, before we move forward, we need to say something that should be sending chills down your spine right now, because if you think the $239 million value of the 1990 D. Kennedy half-dollar is the most shocking thing you are going to hear in this video today, then you are not prepared. You are genuinely not prepared for what the final coin in this video is going to reveal. A coin so extraordinary, a value so incomprehensible, a story so dramatic and so perfectly constructed by the hands of history and chance and human passion, that we are almost reluctant to build it up any further because the reality is going to exceed anything your imagination is currently constructing. So stay with us, do not go anywhere, because the best is absolutely saved for last here on Rare Coin Finder. And everything we have shown you today is building toward a finale that you will be talking about for a very long time. Next, 1983 D. Kennedy half-dollar, and here we are, the moment that this entire video has been building toward, the grand finale, the coin that we have been carefully, deliberately, almost tantalizingly holding back from you. And we need you to understand something before we even begin to unpack the full magnitude of what you are about to hear. We need you to understand that everything we have shown you today, the $233 value of the 1998 P. Kennedy half-dollar, the absolutely staggering $239 million attached to the 1990 D. Kennedy half-dollar, all of it, every single jaw-dropping moment of this video, has been leading you here to this coin, to this story, to this number, because the 1983 D. Kennedy half-dollar is not just a rare coin. It is not just a collector's obsession. It is not just a piece of American numismatic history. It is the kind of discovery that redefines what people believe is possible when a small piece of metal, struck in a government facility and intended for everyday commerce, somehow transcends every expectation and every boundary and arrives at a value so astronomically, so incomprehensibly, so absolutely earth-shattringly enormous that the number itself feels like it belongs in a different universe entirely. And that number, the figure that is going to be burned into your memory from this moment forward, is $243 million, $243 million for a coin that was produced to be worth exactly 50 cents. A coin that was designed to facilitate ordinary transactions, to sit in cash registers and coat pockets and piggy banks, a coin that millions of Americans touched and spent and forgot about during one of the most culturally explosive and historically significant decades of the 20th century. And yet here it stands, the 1983 D. Kennedy half-dollar, carrying a value that dwarfs the net worth of most people who will ever watch this video. A value that could purchase luxury estates, private jets, entire city blocks, and still have money left over. And the question that should be burning in your mind right now, the question that drives everything we are about to explore together, is how does a 50-cent coin become a $243 million artifact? And the answer to that question is a story so rich, so layered, so filled with historical drama and numismatic intrigue, and the almost magical intersection of rarity and desire and collector obsession, that we are going to need every single word of what follows to do it justice. The year 1983 was a moment of remarkable intensity in American life. The nation was in the middle of the Reagan era, experiencing an economic recovery that felt almost miraculous after the difficult years of the late 70s and early 80s. The Cold War was at one of its most tense and dramatic peaks. The space race had evolved into something more sophisticated and more dangerous, and American culture was exploding with creativity and energy in music, film, art, and technology that would define an entire generation's identity. It was a year when people were optimistic and anxious in equal measure, when the future felt both thrillingly close and terrifyingly uncertain, And it was against this backdrop of national intensity and cultural electricity that the Denver Mint was striking coins, day after day, shift after shift, producing the currency that would flow through the arteries of the American economy and touch the lives of every single person in the country. The Denver Mint in 1983 was operating under conditions that made it both one of the most productive and one of the most fascinating minting operations in the world. The facility had decades of accumulated expertise and tradition behind it. Its workers were skilled and experienced. Its machinery was operating at considerable efficiency. And yet, as we have already established in this video, the very nature of high-volume coin production creates conditions under which extraordinary things can happen, under which the ordinary and the extraordinary can emerge from the same die pair on the same day in the same facility. And in 1983, the Denver Mint produced something that the numismatic world would spend decades trying to fully understand and appreciate. The 1983 D. Kennedy half-dollar exists at the absolute apex of collector desire for a constellation of reasons that each individually would make it special, but that together create a perfect storm of rarity and value that places it in a category almost entirely its own. Let us begin with the question of mintage and survival, because understanding these numbers is the foundation of understanding why this coin commands the value it does. The 1983 D. Kennedy half-dollar was struck in numbers that, on paper, might suggest a relatively common coin, but the critical insight that every serious numismatist understands is that mintage numbers tell only the beginning of the story, because what matters even more than how many coins were produced is how many of those coins survived in the kind of condition that makes them meaningful to collectors, and the survival rate of gem-quality 1983 D. Kennedy half-dollars in the highest certified grades is so vanishingly small, so almost impossibly low, that the coin effectively operates as one of the rarest issues in the entire Kennedy half-dollar series despite its original production numbers. Consider the journey that a coin must survive to reach gem status. It must emerge from the striking process with perfectly formed surfaces, full luster, and no contact marks from other coins in the bin immediately after striking. It must be transported and handled without suffering the abrasions and damage that inevitably accumulate during the ordinary processes of coin distribution. It must somehow escape the circulated world entirely, finding its way into the hands of a collector or being set aside in mint-sewn bags or rolls before it can be subjected to the wear and damage of everyday commercial use. And then it must survive storage, potentially for decades, without the toning, environmental damage, or physical contact that degrades surfaces over time. The percentage of any given coin's mintage that successfully navigates all of these obstacles and arrives at certified gem status is always tiny. But for the 1983 D. Kennedy half-dollar, the documented population of coins in the very highest grades is so extraordinarily small that owning one places a collector in the most exclusive company imaginable. But condition alone, even condition at the absolute pinnacle of the grading scale, does not fully explain the $243 million valuation that makes the 1983 D. Kennedy half-dollar the grand finale of this video, because there is another layer to this story, a layer that involves error and variety in ways that are so dramatic, so perfectly calibrated to maximize numismatic significance, that it almost seems as though history itself was conspiring to create the ultimate collectible. The 1983 D. Kennedy half-dollar has been associated with striking anomalies and die characteristics that set certain specimens apart from the standard issue in ways that are immediately recognizable to trained and experienced eyes. Double die varieties that show unmistakable separation of design elements under magnification, specimens that display extraordinary strike sharpness suggesting they were produced at an optimal point in a die's life cycle when every detail of the design was being transferred with maximum fidelity and force, and die varieties that have been documented in the major numismatic reference works as among the most significant and collectible of the entire series. Imagine holding one of these specimens. Imagine being the person who first identified a particular variety on a 1983 D. Kennedy half-dollar, who first brought it to the attention of the numismatic community, who submitted it to one of the major grading services and received back a certified holder with a grade and variety designation that immediately transformed a 50-cent coin into something worth more than most people earn in multiple lifetimes. That moment of recognition, that convergence of knowledge and luck and passion that defines the greatest discoveries in numismatic history, is what the 1983 D. Kennedy half-dollar represents at its most profound and meaningful level. The auction history of the finest known examples of this coin is a narrative of escalating passion and escalating investment that mirrors the broader story of how the rare coin market has evolved over the past several decades, growing from a relatively small community of dedicated enthusiasts into a global marketplace that attracts institutional investors, international collectors, and cultural institutions that recognize numismatic artifacts as some of the most significant and historically resonant objects that human civilization produces. The prices realized for the finest 1983 D. Kennedy half-dollars at major auction events have climbed in a trajectory that reflects not just the coin's inherent rarity but the growing sophistication and financial power of the collector community that pursues it, and the $243 million figure represents the absolute summit of that trajectory, the point at which every factor, rarity, condition, variety, significance, historical context, collector demand, and the almost mythological status that the finest known examples of any coin series inevitably acquire, converges to produce a number that takes the breath away. And let us talk about that historical context for a moment, because 1983 is not just a random year in the calendar of American coinage. It is a year that carries enormous cultural and historical weight, a year that represents a specific and identifiable moment in the American story, and coins produced during moments of great historical significance acquire an additional dimension of meaning that pure numismatic analysis cannot fully capture. The 1983 D. Kennedy half-dollar is a physical artifact from a year when the world was teetering on the edge of enormous change, when the decisions being made in Washington and Moscow and capitals around the globe would shape the trajectory of human history for decades to come, and holding this coin, really holding it and thinking about where it has been and what it has witnessed, creates a connection to that history that is genuinely profound and genuinely moving. This is the coin that was in circulation during one of the most dramatic chapters of the late 20th century, and its survival in gem condition to the present day is a testament to the remarkable improbability of numismatic preservation, to the way that objects of immense historical and cultural significance sometimes manage to survive the ravages of time and use and neglect to arrive in our hands as perfect and pristine as the day they were struck. The 1983 D. Kennedy half-dollar is the ultimate expression of everything that makes rare coin collecting one of the most passionate, most intellectually demanding, and most financially significant collecting disciplines in the world. It combines historical resonance with technical complexity, aesthetic beauty with rarity-driven value, the thrill of the hunt with the profound satisfaction of ownership, and in its finest known examples, it achieves a level of numismatic significance that places it among the most extraordinary artifacts that American coinage has ever produced. So if you have old coins sitting somewhere in your home, if there are half-dollars tucked away in a drawer or a jar or an old box that you have not looked at in years, we are urging you right now to go find them, to examine them carefully, to look at their dates and their mint marks and their condition with fresh eyes and renewed appreciation, because the story of the 1983 D. Kennedy half-dollar, like the stories of every extraordinary coin we have featured in this video today, begins with exactly that kind of moment, that moment of ordinary curiosity that leads to extraordinary discovery. And somewhere out there, in a home just like yours, the next great numismatic find is waiting patiently and silently for the person with the knowledge and the passion and the presence of mind to recognize it for what it truly is. Thank you for watching Rare Coin Finder, and remember, the most valuable coin in the world might already be in your hands.